Hello and welcome to episode 14 of Let's Grill John. I am Phil Makepeace. Up above me there is John McKenzie. John, how are you doing? Leeds seem to be winning a bit more lately.
Well, they've always been winning. I don't know what you mean about a bit more lately.
Well, I think you.
I mean, it was touch and go for a bit.
And then you were very worried last Thursday about the Stoke game, and you ended up winning that 5-0. So I think the Joneth doth protesteth too much.
Too much.
Potentially. Anyway, how's your chess going?
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
I'm just mainly doing puzzles at the moment, which is what you say is bad, but there we go.
It depends how you address it. Basically, I think puzzles are fine. It's when you put them in some kind of some kind of plane where you're expecting puzzles to just naturally sharpen you. I think you need to put in some work alongside it, because if you're then, all the ones you're getting wrong, it's worth going through to see if there's a pattern, that kind of thing. So I think the puzzles as a general thing are fine, but this puzzle rush thing where there's not a premium put on the actual study, and it's just a thing, I'm not so sure about. Puzzle rush.
I'm mainly just using it as an excuse to be playing chess without having to put a huge amount of effort in at the moment, I'm afraid. But
I think that's the issue, yeah, with puzzles in general. Anyway, we are going to look today, ladies and gentlemen, at a game by Bobby Fischer, who was playing against someone called Delhi, D-E-L-Y, a game from Skopje in 1967. And Mr. Fischer makes light work of the Delhi here. He takes the sun-dried tomatoes, he takes the olives, he just goes for it. He loves it. John's shaking his head. I don't know why.
It should be a prison for people
well,
like
I mean, what can I say? You haven't heard of John Sitton, so what can I say?
It's true.
You've been accused of having no football culture by someone this morning.
Really?
Yeah, oh yeah. Dear, oh dear.
Taking my name in vain on the Twitter feed.
Anyway, let's get on with this. As always, John will, at certain points, I will be asking him to guess the next move, and he will get points for his choices. There are 6 moments like that today, John. So, a maximum of 60 points. Your target score, as we can see up here, but you can't, is 40. 4-0. Your target is 40. So, you'll get 10 points for getting the correct answer, correct move. And anywhere between 6 and 9 for decent moves, and anywhere between 1 and 5 for moves which are fine but not really relevant to the position. And any move which loses material, you will get a big fat 0. So, only 6
That's a good job.
week.
I know all of Bobby Fischer's games off by heart, then, isn't it?
Yeah, there's only 6 this week, so any zeros mean you're in big trouble if you're going to get to 40. But let's start anyway. Right, okay, we have a Sicilian. And we have a Sicilian, which, for a bit went kind of normally. So we have all this stuff, knight c3, and then black played knight c6, which is definitely unusual. I think it's
a classic variation, I believe it's called.
Absolutely fine. It's absolutely fine, but I think there is a reason why g6, a6, e6. And e5.
I can name all the variations as well if you want to.
Yeah, go on then.
Najdorf is A6.
So a6 is the Najdorf.
Scheveningen is the E6.
Yeah.
Dragon is G6.
And what about e5?
No, I don't know. Mad. Crazy.
I think it's Kalashnikov, but I might be wrong. Anyway, knight c6 was chosen by Mr. Delhi. Right. Bishop c4. And this is Fischer's favourite Sozin line of the Sicilian, where you're basically going for the balls from early on, and it sort of can transpose into lines including the Grand Prix attack and other things, but it's just a very principled move. You get it a lot against the dragon, I guess. Bishop c4 is the main line in the dragon, but that's largely because by playing g6 in the dragon, the way that this works in the dragon, let's have a look. is that by playing g6 you've kind of weakened some squares, and so it makes sense for white to really play very heavily in this direction. In other lines it might make more sense for the bishop to sit on e2 and just wait, or b5 to exchange itself off. But anyway, throws in bishop c4, very heavily targeted at the f7 square, and also d5. I mean, one of the things that black wants to do in the Sicilian is play d5, so stopping that is a good idea. e6, not a bad idea either, to try to get d5 in and just to blunt this bishop as well. Right, John, over to you. First one of these. I would like a plan and a move here, please.
Okay. So whenever I play the Sicilian as black, I hate it when people come down the king side. I should probably not be admitting this in public.
I mean, it's not going to stop them either way. Whether you say, "Oh, no, it's fine, I don't mind it."
Yeah, whenever I play the Sicilian, I'm really strong when players come down the king side. So, And I usually try and counter that by being quite expansive on the queen side to try and distract them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean,
like hand waving over on the other side of the board.
Well, what's happening here with these two pawns is that black is well set up to go in either direction. Flat pawn structures have full potential, so black could play either of these to open up either of the bishops pretty much whenever they want. So yeah, playing on the queen side is definitely one way of playing for black. So that's definitely that's good. I mean, what you should be thinking about here, as well as your own stuff, is what black wants to do. Good. Keep going.
Like you say, I suppose if you move too quickly onto the king side, you're just going to dissuade the black from castling anytime soon.
Okay.
You could castle yourself, I suppose.
The reason why I've chosen to throw this one at you so early is that I think it's helpful to get a coherent plan even now. Just kind of the things you just want to do, where you want to put the rest of your pieces. Obviously, you haven't castled yet. Just getting an idea of the kind of way you want to play, and there's plenty of good moves here.
I was thinking, I was eyeing up anyway, bishop to g5.
Okay.
Just because that, I don't know. It just feels like you're obviously pinning the knight to the queen.
Okay, so John is looking at this.
I don't know. Obviously, if the queen wasn't there, then it would be a bit more interesting because you could break up the structure of the pawn structure on the 7th rank on that side a little bit, but obviously the queen will just take and it won't make much difference.
What do you think black would play against bishop g5? This is the next step, right? Bishop g5, what do you think?
Probably push the pawn and force you to make the decision.
I don't see there's any need. I think that h6 might just, I think you then go bishop h4 and then
you don't want them to double. Yeah,
I don't think this is going to happen. I just don't think this is a plausible variation.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that black has here? It might be a bit awkward.
I guess you could. I'm not sure.
Okay, I don't know either. It's just sort of challenging you to think about what black would do back. So let's have a move. What do we think?
I don't know. Maybe the only piece that I can see that really needs to be developed is the dark squared bishop at this point.
Right.
And I'm just not sure where you would go other than. I don't think that move, the G5 move, is that useful. What's the Yugoslav variation or the English where you put it on E3?
Okay.
Which is just a good square, right? Other than that, you could swap off the knights, the D4 on C6, or you could castle. But other than that, other than pushing a pawn, which may be a good move, obviously, but I don't know.
So let's have a move.
Let's castle.
Okay, 9 points. Nothing wrong with castling at all. I don't think it makes sense in these positions to castle queenside, owing to Black's got decent, as you say, decent potential and a flat pawn structure to come in this sort of this direction. Everything might just start chucking itself at you. So get your king out of the way. I think bishop g5. I wondered about queen a5 instead, but actually maybe you just take this and then this is fine.
It stops you from castling that way at least.
I also wondered about queen b6. Every time you move this bishop, this pawn is going to get weaker. But I think actually you're fine here. So maybe h6 is the best way of playing this. But then I think now this bishop's just misplaced and it can't come back ever to defend the knight, which it might need to do. So bishop e3 I think would have been certainly another 9-pointer. Castle's absolutely fine. He's getting the king off the diagonal out of the way, and you're just preparing to do whatever you want to do next. And there's no big threat. What Black's last move was e6, of course, so there's nothing particularly to worry about. So castling will always be fine here. So 9 points for that. The move played was bishop to b3. So why might that have happened?
I guess the bishop was undefended, so it defends the bishop, keeps you on that diagonal.
Absolutely. It's just putting the bishop on a safer square where it can't get hit. All of these things would be hitting it. d5 as well might happen with tempo. All of these kind of things would hit a loose bishop on c4. So putting it on b3 is just a very good way of getting it out of the way, and you're not going to have anything to worry about later on. And also, it's a kind of wait and see move as well, because Black has lots of different ways to play this as well. Black played a6. Now what?
Is that just preparing for b5?
Yeah, so I mean, it would have been much. This would have been necessitated probably if Black had gone a6 last move. If you've gone something like castles a6, you might have to take this. You might have to play this anyway to avoid all these tempo gains. So, okay, bishop b3 was played. And then a6. What now?
Seems quite passive, that move.
Or a6?
At this point. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, b5 isn't really threatened, is it? Because the knight would hang. So, yeah, I don't think a6 really gains anything. The idea of it is to possibly prepare b5 at some point, but also just to stop knights landing in on annoying squares, potentially. But yeah, you're right, it doesn't really do anything, and you've got a free rein here to really go for your own plan.
Yeah. b6 looks quite a nice spot for a knight, but it's a bit out of the way, isn't it? And I guess if we're sort of aiming towards the king's side, we should probably start loading pieces up over there.
Right.
we've got that knight, but again, I don't know. Just feels like it's going to get kicked away at some point. I'm still trying to think about where the best spot is for the dark squared bishop, but
Okay.
maybe that's not an issue at the moment.
Okay, I'm going to press you for a move.
Isn't the knight on c6 just going to swap off at some point?
Maybe. But that would invite your queen into the centre where it can't really be looked at. I suppose this pawn could go here, but then your bishop would be opened up as a result.
Yeah, which makes me want to attack that pawn in some way.
Okay.
I'm just thinking, not entirely sure how, unless I just push my pawn on f pawn, but that feels a bit too aggressive.
When you're making this kind of decision, what kind of things should you be thinking about?
I should probably have castled before I made that move, right? So
maybe.
And yeah, I guess with you will say once you've moved a pawn, you can't move it back. So what are you giving up by moving that pawn?
Good. So what are you giving up by moving this?
You're allowing a diagonal into the king quite easily. You're preventing any way of defending that the DE pawn with another pawn.
Okay. So knowing those things, how should you weigh that up, I guess is my question.
What's the benefit I'm going to get from it?
Yeah, but also, not just that, but opening up diagonals and weakening pawns is fine, but black would have to be able to do something about that, right? Black would have to be able to take advantage of the open diagonals or the weakness therefore on the pawn. I think that's the way to look at it as well. But you're right, you do need to be sure in your own mind that your move actually does something for you as well.
It just feels like you could be quite aggressive down that diagonal which the light squared bishop is looking down.
Okay.
And then cause a few problems for black.
Right, I want to move.
Okay, go on then, I'll do f4.
10 points. F4 is the move played by Fisher. Everything you said was absolutely correct. I think that your danger, your kind of siren going off in your head, or maybe I'm opening up a bit too much here. Absolutely the correct thing to be thinking about. However, with both of these pawns, they're sort of in the way of the bishop, so I don't think anything in particular is going to happen on the diagonals for a little while yet anyway. The only way this bishop's going to come to c5 is if d5 happens. Let's have a look at what happens. d5. I think d5 is probably actually the best move here. But you get lots of tempi to use, and this is actually now just a French, where white is doing absolutely fine, but also has f5 coming. So f4, yeah, I don't think you have to castle before it. The king is probably safer on e1 than it is on g1 actually, because if you're going things down this diagonal, yeah, okay, you can't castle now, but I think it's slightly better than having the king actually on g1 at the moment anyway. So f4, 10 points. Let me update your total. 19 out of 20 so far. You're doing well. 4 more of these. Okay. So let's carry on. After f4, queen a5, which is a strange move. I tried a queen a5 system in the Dragon with no success in January. Partly the reason I've gone back to playing the Caro-Kann. I got chastened by how badly it went. It's just a strange move that doesn't do anything for black's development. And I mean, this is a threat. The pin, of course, means that this is a threat. But beyond that, I think the queen's just a bit of a target. And actually, this knight may have wished to come to a5 instead. You see that a lot in the Sicilian, don't you? Where the knight lands on c4 or attacks the bishop that is potentially making mischief up this diagonal. So the queen's just a bit in the way there. I think objectively it's probably fine, but yeah, I'm not so convinced. Anyway, Fisher castled. Knight takes knight. Queen takes knight. and then d5. Now, this move, d5, why might I suggest that this is a bit too much? How come? What is this doing that black can't necessarily afford to do right now?
So it's just threatening swapping off pieces.
It's threatening to swap off pieces in which particular area?
The centre of
and
the
why
board.
is that not necessarily in black's interest right now?
Because the king hasn't castled.
Good, yeah. And it's at least 2 moves away, right? One of these bishops has got to get out of the way. Okay, so with that in mind, but think about what the move might actually threaten as well. I would like you to give me a plan and a move here, please. White to play.
Well, initially just taking with the e-pawn seems quite nice. But I guess I'll just take with the...
Well, think about what this move does. We talked about it briefly earlier.
Which move, sorry?
d5. What is it doing? Remember we talked about d5 earlier in this position, or another position, this one, where so this is the one we got.
Oh, yeah, we could just push it. We could just push it and get tempo, which is quite nice. Sort of closes off the centre a bit for black.
But think about what piece is this helping, John?
The pawn on d5.
Which piece is this helping? What has just happened as a result of this move? Every time a pawn moves, lines open.
So your dark squared bishop
wants to do what?
Pin the queen.
Yeah, that would be bad. So we can't allow that. So you've got 2 choices here, really. 3, let's say. You can move the queen off the diagonal, you can move the king off the diagonal, or you could do something else.
You can block.
Okay.
The You could threaten. You could no, because it's just. Is there anything stopping you from just sitting the queen in e5?
It would be a pin, very similar to one of the tactics we looked at last week. I suspect you might get completely done by this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Where this doesn't look very pleasant.
I guess the other option is to move your knight from c3 to a4.
What are you doing against b5?
Nothing.
Well, this does.
Well, it does block. It blocks the queen.
Yeah, it blocks the queen looking at c5 to defend it. So I guess you could just.
You could just hop onto there and then
c5
hop back off again.
I think it's just a bit dodgy.
Yeah, it's a bit too.
I'm sure
cowboy,
it's absolutely
isn't it?
fine. I think b5 and then maybe even like b6. Oh, but now knight takes e4 might be a bit awkward. I think it's a bit messy. I think it's very messy, this.
Everything's hanging a little bit.
Yeah, I think this is risky. Alright, let's have a move. What would you like to do?
Is there the option of putting the bishop on that diagonal?
Okay.
And then if it does come in, you just hop down and defend the bishop. Well, I don't know why you wouldn't just do that first time, but I guess it gives you tempo in the event that attack does happen.
Okay.
I don't really like this. Okay, I'll go. I'm going to go Queen A4.
Queen A4 check. How are you dealing with this stuff?
Well, I mean, I'm not thinking that far ahead.
Well, I think you need to be, unfortunately. 0. This loses a pawn because, you're
going to tap my knight.
Well, the e4 square, the e4 pawn is just going to fall here. There's not a lot you can do about this guy.
Yeah.
So, anytime you've got a threat against you, one way of getting rid of it entirely is to swap off the piece that's in danger, and that's what that achieves. But the moment the main point is, look, this move has two things. It's looking at the e4 and it's threatening bishop c5. At the moment, you've got adequate. Oh, that's not how bishops move, or knights move even. You've got adequate defense, 2 versus 2, and there's a very simple way of just developing your last piece, protecting the diagonal, stopping bishop c5, and that is bishop e3. That is the move, as played by Fischer. So
yes, I mentioned that. I should have done it,
and
it just felt a bit silly. But yeah,
why would it seem silly?
I don't know. It's just a bit basic, isn't it?
But this is the point I've been trying to make over certainly a lot of the games we've done. Is that often the simple moves are the best.
Yeah.
And here I'd be slightly concerned about Queen G4, Knight G4, but equally, I think now you can probably afford to swap queens, and you've got your bishop on this lovely outpost. And this can't be bad. Yeah, bishop e3. Anytime you play bishop e3 in the Sicilian, knight g4 is definitely a move to look out for. But I think here you're absolutely fine. Okay. Knight g4 did not happen. Knight takes e4 happened, and then suddenly black is in a lot of trouble here because they are opening up the centre completely unnecessarily, and they are still 2 moves away from castling, whereas you have completed your development. These rooks are ready to come in if they want. All of these pieces are ready to attack it. It's just a numbers game here, really. White has 6 potentially active pieces against what? I mean, like, one of these might just about help, but these 2 rooks are doing absolutely nothing, and this is why it's very, very dangerous for black to open things up in the centre here. White took, black took. White to play. What now, John? So you've got 5 potentially attacking pieces against maybe 1 or 2 defensive.
I want to move one of my rooks onto the d file.
Okay.
I'll go with the rook on f1.
F1.
Yeah.
Why F1?
Well, because the queen's on the a file. I don't know.
If we're trying to go for the king in the centre, I mean, for a start, the bishop looks at the a pawn.
Yeah.
And
but I was kind of thinking then if you could try and dislodge that, then.
But then equally, how? Just be concrete. Look, is this bishop likely to be attacked at any point in the next 3 or 4 moves?
No.
And equally, are we that worried about this pawn if we're going to be able to start chucking things up the board?
Yeah. No.
Okay, so you want?
I'll go with the a1 bishop.
Yeah, I'd suggest rook ad1 rather than rook fd1. Also, if you're trying to open things up, you were already thinking about this kind of line, weren't you? I think ideally you've moved the f pawn. You might as well then keep the rook on that line. Anyway, rook ad1 gets 7 points. It's not quite there, but it's absolutely fine. It's the right kind of idea, and nothing wrong with it whatsoever. It continues the attack and maintains the advantage you have. However, there is a better move here, and it is really
just pushing the pawn.
Yeah, just f5. The easiest way to basically you've got this rook is ready to come to wherever the gaps lie, wherever the files open. But if you play rook ad1, I'm not sure how you're then adding fuel to the fire off the d file, because you have no pawns to clear. It's already there. This rook may wish to come to d1 at some point, but if you're going to go after the king and just get it done, just start stripping away all of the defences as quickly as you can. Okay, queen b4, trying to swap queens, which may or may not be good. Who knows? White to play, John. You're on 26 out of 40. You need 2 7s to get to your target. So you're well in hand.
Well, so if you take on e6, and then if he takes with the bishop, then you take with your bishop, and then he takes there, yeah.
What have you achieved?
You've opened up the diagonal from h5 to the king.
Okay.
Which probably doesn't help you that much. But I guess you've weakened the defence over on that side. You've still prevented the castle.
What else have you opened up, John? There's another big thing you've missed.
The f5.
Good. Right, think about these two things. Work out something. Just try and visualise the position after the exchanges on e6, and then.
So there's a pawn then on e6, and the bishop is being attacked by the rook. And I guess oh yeah, and the queen is being defended by that bishop.
Okay. It's okay, you're doing well, keep going.
I'm just trying to work out, because it just feels like you might get some tactics if you take in the right order.
Okay, there's always tic-tacs when the king's in the middle. Yep.
But and also, like, I don't want to swap off the queen at this point.
Okay.
So I'm trying to just keep up tempo so that that move doesn't come in.
Terrific. Keep going. Good.
So I'm just looking for potential checks, but all
you need right now is a move. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I'll take on e6.
10 points. Perfect. I was trying to sort of lead you down, because otherwise we've been here all day. Yeah. No. I think that here it's quite easy to see that. Yeah. Just keeping up this tempo means that, I mean, if queen takes queen, then you just get this other one, right? And you've with check, and then you take the queen, and you're just 2 pawns up, and you've got a pawn sitting there on the 7th rank. I think this is clearly the best way to play it. And likewise here, bishop takes, pawn takes. We reach this position. Okay, this is your final move. Find the win. Or find a winning plan, perhaps more to the point. You need 4 to get to your target, so you need something that's fine, basically. Remember, attacking is a numbers game, right? These guys completely. That's not how that works. Here. Well, my mouse is being a pain in the ass. We're here. Right, let's try again. Okay. These pieces are basically out of action, so you're always going to have more attacking pieces, assuming that you can make them work.
This might be a nice time to move my rook over to the d file. There's a nice square on d7, which is going to cause problems.
Remember, you're still a pawn down here, so swaps may not be the best thing. Certainly not swapping the queens.
So what do I mean? My queen somewhere. Yeah, I guess the only thing I can see really is taking the bishop on f8 with the rook, but I don't think I'm seeing far enough ahead.
What happens?
Well, the rook takes a rook,
Why does the rook
presumably,
take the rook?
to get it into play.
Isn't this going to be a problem?
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah, well, that's the move I'm going to do.
Okay.
I'm going to go down the exchange, but with wild flourishing.
The point is that you've got in this position you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 attacking pieces. Black has 2 defensive pieces,
And they're defending each other.
and yeah, after rook takes f8, which is 10 points, and you get to your target, you get 46 out of 60, which is very decent. You only had one small aberration where you tried to swap queens. You've now got 1, 2, 3 against 1, so it's the same difference. 2 pieces, 2 more attacking pieces than they have defenders, but you've trebled. You've got 3 versus 1. I think that's always going to be better than 4 versus 2 generally. So yeah, this rook, this bishop was a very good piece of defending some dark squares. You now are the only person with a dark squared minor piece, which is going to be more useful than this horrible rook in the corner. So queen takes f8, and Fischer played queen to a4 check, and black resigned because there is nothing to be done. What is the reason for queen a4 check? Why go there? Why not just take this pawn first?
Because you're preventing him from castling?
Not necessarily, because this can come here, can't it? So what's the advantage of having this pawn on b5 rather than on b7 when you take the pawn?
Oh, you're then attacking the...
You've got a fork. You haven't just got a simple attack on the pawn.
Yeah.
You've also got... So yeah, there's no way out here. If king f7, what would happen? What would black play? What would white play here?
Presumably just take...
Whenever pieces are on the same line, things happen.
Oh, yeah. You'd bring your rook from a1 to f1.
I think you'd have this fairly brutal skewer. The king goes to e7.
Another skewer with the bishop.
Absolutely. Skewers everywhere. The king goes to d8. Then I think you're getting mated very quickly, because you can now bring the rook to d1, something like king c. I suppose a light square makes a bit more sense.
Yeah, you can just hop into d7 there.
You can go to d7, you go to c4. I think all of this stuff is...
And then your bishop can...
Yeah, all of this stuff might start to happen. Okay, so that's the thing. b5 would then, yeah, as we said, b5 would introduce queen takes e4 with this fork, and then I think black can forget about doing much after this. Rook d8, I don't know, queen c6, check, rook c7, bishop c5 looks quite good as well. These pieces are just completely mal-coordinated and nothing is going to happen. Right, okay, John. So, well done. You reached your target. You exceeded your target by 6 points. 46 out of 60 when your target was 40. That's not bad at all. How was that?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
I think the points thing just makes me a little bit nervous and a bit slower.
It's fine. The idea here is that, yeah, this game just shows you what happens if you don't castle, and what happens if your opponent opens up the centre when they haven't yet castled. It's just a recipe for disaster. Okay, right, streams wise, we're back tomorrow at 9:30 PM with a Blitz album party, and then I'm also doing, I can't remember, I think I might be doing a first to 4 Blitz against Chris, Mr. Mackenzie, on Wednesday, but that is unconfirmed.
Maybe I'll watch that and give you some heckling.
Yeah, do it. We'll work that out. I think it's during a Leeds game potentially, unless you're playing early again. I don't know. Wednesday at 9?
No, Leeds are playing on Thursday. It's been pushed back a day.
In that case, you're fine. And then on Thursday lunchtime. I think I'm going to do another lunchtime crunch time. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. Thank you to John for giving up his afternoon. And we will see you again soon.